What's Your Cave Live? I'm Paul Stewart, and it's great to be back. Look at all you people signing in. We haven't done one of these in a while, so this is, it feels fresh, Eric, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So we are waiting for Eastbound here to connect. Oh, hey! How are you, my friend?
What's going on, Paul? Nice to meet you.
Nice to finally meet you too, man.
I'm sorry? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I was telling everybody here, I haven't done one of these in kind of a while. I kind of lost my mojo a little bit, so got to bear with me a little bit.
It's gonna come right back, man. Don't worry about
it. How's things with you?
Awesome. I mean, we have a thunderstorm going on over here. I was considering plugging out all my gear, but I think everything is okay over here. Enjoying the weather. You know, we don't have a long summer here in Canada, so you know, I'm doing good, man. Feeling good.
Excellent. You've been busy. I mean,
yes.
Yeah. When aren't you busy?
I mean, I would say I'm busy all the time. It's kind of, you know, not really talked about often as an audio engineer, producer. You know, you kind of make your own schedule. So there's not really, I mean, unless you work for a studio, of course, but if you do everything independently, you make your own schedule. So no one's there to remind you like, hey, remember that mix or remember this one song you still have to work on, you know. So it's good, but you know, you just got to stay disciplined and just work your ass off.
Yeah, well, I assume that you are disciplined, right? You have to be, right?
You have to be.
I mean, it's anybody that has to work for themselves would know that, right? Just keeping yourself occupied to the point where you can just have things flow from day to day. At what point in your career did you realize, oh my God, I'm doing it?
It happened the first time I took on more work than I was actually capable of finishing. And we know, which is a good problem, but you know, I was just saying yes to everyone, thinking like, yeah, I can do it. And then, you know, life comes up and you're trying to sleep and you're trying to just, you know, do other things. And then I'm like, wow, okay, I gotta figure out how I'm going to schedule things accordingly, kind of figure out how long do I spend averagely, you know, on a mix or production or whatnot. You know, to be more, how can you say, true to my word? Because I don't want to say like, hey, you know, give me 2 days or a week or whatnot, and then you know, they're waiting X amount of time. So yeah, you got to make sure that you well, it was then, yeah. So it was then that I realized like, wow, like this is really, you know, this is taking on.
And it just sort of flowed in without even like.
Yeah, like I didn't even I didn't realize that it was so time intensive as well, right? Like in engineering, you know, because you never know what you're gonna get, right? Like sometimes you may get something that like, okay, that's a cool song, and you get the stems and it's like, you know, 200 stems, and you're like, oh my God, you know. So, but yeah, it was a very cool moment to experience.
That's good. So. And I apologize because I might not, you know, with all the reading that you can do or try to find out about somebody, but in your very beginnings, was there a studio that you were working from in the beginning?
In the begin, like I would say the beginning of my engineering, like just kind of two sides of it. Like when I started my production, I mean, I was just a young kid in high school, you know, kind of crappy laptop, just doing my thing, Apple earbuds, you know, just figuring things out. But once I started to get more into the mixing, mastering, engineering aspect of things, I was just doing things in my living room, funny enough. Like I had like a little apartment here in Toronto, and I literally set up my whole desk like right in the middle of the living room, and just did it that way.
That's awesome. I mean, really.
Yeah.
And so like you haven't had to really experience maybe some of those hardships of like as an intern in a studio or anything like that?
You know what, like yes and no. Like I did like a program in high school where I had to do something along those lines, but like a real like internship at a real studio, no. Like, and funny enough, it actually used to really intimidate me, because like I did go to school for a bit. Like I ended up dropping out, but I went to school a bit for audio engineering, and I was super you know, like I was it was scary. I was like, how could I ever learn this kind of stuff, you know? But it wasn't until I actually found passion and motivation to want to know how to do it that I kind of graduated YouTube University, as they say these days, right? Like
Easy.
I learned everything from the internet, and it's really true. It's like you know, and it's sometimes it sounds corny these days, but it's really true. Like I learned almost everything that I know from the internet, and you know, of course, experience.
Right. I mean, it's a great resource. I mean, the things that I find, you know, the minute little detail of something you specifically look and hey, somebody else had the same idea.
Yeah,
They made a video about
100%.
it. It's crazy, right?
Yeah,
But having the passion and having that other drive, because it's just like anything, you know, you look at any great artist or musician and what they figured out, what they did, what they invented or created or brought to it. I
yeah.
mean, that's pretty powerful stuff, but it's that drive that gets you there.
Yeah, I mean, you know, because there's so many levels to it when it comes to audio engineering. When I first started, I thought it was some sort of magical. Because for me, it was really like, what is it that these guys do? Because I would try my best trying to get, you know, nice, loud, wide, you know, bass heavy mix going on. And I would be kind of happy with it at the end, but then I would listen to another big record on the radio or something like that, and it just sounded so much bigger and better, and I wanted to know, like, what do they do, you know, like what is it that they do? And it was really the obsession of you know, over that question that led me to really want to know what it is. And that's when I realized that I knew nothing, you know. It's like you think you know everything, but then you start to really look into things, and I'm like, wow, I know nothing. Like I didn't even know what A to D converters were. I didn't know none of that stuff. So, and that's when I was like, okay, you know, time to get to work, time to get to studying. And that's how I got there. But, you know, if you're not really passionate all the way about it and curious, you know, it may not be for you, because it's a lot to learn for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's continually growing, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
turn around and there's like, oh, you know, a certain plugin I've never heard of, you
Yeah.
know, and there's, you know, 50 more that release the same day or something like that, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we'd love to know more about, oh, before we go there, you had your own, I saw a release that came out a couple of months
Yes.
ago.
Yes. Navigate, my album, was my first album that I've ever released. I've teased it for a bit too long.
Yeah.
But I'm very happy it's out. The response has been great, and you know, it feels very gratifying having a piece of art out there that people can enjoy, and just getting the feedback from other people, you know, it's amazing. So it's online on all streaming platforms right now. If you guys want to go check it out, it's Eastbound Navigate.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm very happy with that release.
And it sounds really good, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so you were saying the feedback, the responses you're getting, and the artists you work for give you some feedback too. I would assume,
Absolutely,
right?
no,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's you know, people I would say, especially artists I work with, are very familiar with the sound that I've crafted for, you know, years, and to really hear like a project like that, you know, coming out together is really something special. And that's mainly the feedback that I've gotten from people too, kind of like how, you know, it has a lot of meaning behind it too. You know, I put a lot of effort into, you know, not just getting a little artwork and, you know, putting some songs together. Here you have something. I really took my time to make sure that it's something that people can really enjoy.
Yeah, I imagine you would have, because like, you know, for as busy as you are with all the other things, where do you find time to work on your own project?
I mean, that's really mainly the reason why it took a while for it to actually come out, because I didn't want to half step it. I wanted to really give it my all. And, you know, like you said, like, you know, being busy, you have to make sacrifices here and there, right? So maybe saying no to some clients, or just taking some time off, maybe a week or two, and kind of just saying, okay, I'm just going to stay focused on this, you know, which is a luxury, honestly, because, you know, you make a schedule. So, yeah.
Yeah. I haven't done that for Genelec yet, to let him know. I'm just
I can see why, 100%.
We stay busy here, but we love it. You know, it's the thing I love. I go back and say this all thing about the audio community is such a great place to be, because there's so many great people, right? And like people that are willing to share, mind share, talk, and all of that. And so, you know, having a big room like this, an immersive room where, you know, we get engineers that share their files. Hey, would you listen to it and tell us what you think? I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? I'm flattered. Of course I would do that, you know?
Exactly. Like, people are so willing to share knowledge, you know, which it's a beautiful thing. I've learned so much from blogs and just like other people in the industry, and you know, people are always open to sharing. I love that.
Yeah. Man, there's a lot of questions coming up, and I'm letting them just fly right by. Hopefully, let me see if Eric is. Yeah, we're gonna get to the tour. Um, uh, oh, someone asked, did you mix and master yourself? Well, I guess you would have, I would think, right?
Yes, I did indeed. Yeah.
And someone asked how you do the 808 in Antidote.
Oh man. So funny enough, I did not mix that one. I produced that one, right? But I think even in the beat, and you know, it's funny, like listening back to just the beat itself, like before, you know, I believe Mike Dean mixed it. Um, but just listening back, I'm like, it doesn't sound far from the actual version that ended up coming out. And it, you know, I don't really do much, and I tell a lot of people this when it comes to bass, you know, anything in the bass frequency range kind of thing. I don't really do too much, only because, you know, it's bass. It's just like it's just a fat waveform that goes up and down, and you don't really have to do too much to it. And the last thing you want to do is add phase to bass.
Yeah.
That's and it can happen pretty quickly with EQ and compression and all kinds of stuff. So I tend to mainly add upper harmonics so that it becomes more apparent through, you know, smaller systems that cannot reproduce those lower frequencies.
Interesting.
But other than that, I don't really don't do too much. I kind of just find the right level, and that's kind of it.
That is awesome to hear, you know,
Yeah.
because like, yeah, you would think, well, that sound, right? It is what it is.
Yeah.
Anything you do to change it, it could actually go the wrong way for you.
Yeah, like I tend to, especially these days, keep things more natural, so less is more. But you know, even with like especially for production, you know, choose the right sample, right? Because as you know, especially in FL Studio, you have to just pick the right bass sound that you want to use for the beat. And if you choose the wrong one, you know, you tend to do all kinds of things to carve it up and do all kinds of things to make it fit. But you know, 9 times out of 10, it may actually just be not the right sound for the production. You may just want to choose a different one.
Yeah. Now, speaking of that, this is Show Us Your Cave, so it's time to get to the studio tour.
I mean, yeah, let me switch things around here. So, this is
Oh,
this is the humble setup. So,
there we are.
I mean, it would be wrong to not start off with these guys over here. These are the Genelec 8040B.
Yeah.
And I mean, they sound fantastic. Before this, I had some different speakers, but when you know, I wanted a sound that was just a bit cleaner, open. I wanted to really hear the stereo image, and I remember the first time hearing these was in Germany, and I was floored by just like how clear and crisp and open things sounded. And took another listen to these at the music store, and I mean, I was sold, brought them home, and have been happy ever since. Um, then we got, I mean, I know you guys posted the little thing about my setup, so it has changed a little bit.
Yes.
Still have the same Apollo converter, so this is pretty much feeding my my summing box. So channel 1 to 16 is being fed by this, and that's then being sent to the API, going into the master bus processor, which is like a compressor limiter situation, and then this is the A to D converter. Love the Burrow, sounds great.
Mm.
And I got these headphones, which, I mean, you know, if you could put Genelecs in headphones, it would be these. And yeah, I just got a different laptop at this point, but it's super fast. And yeah, that's the setup. And this is just, you know, my own home studio. I'm here in Toronto, as you guys can see. And that's the setup.
Dude, so analog summing. When did you start doing that, or when did you realize that was the way to go?
Well, I would say that at first, you know, I watched a video on YouTube, and it was a guy mixing Queen. What was the song? "Don't Stop Me Now" by Queen, and he was mixing. Obviously, it's already been mixed, but he was just doing it like again, like his way. And man, I was like, I heard it immediately. I like when he put the faders up and he was panning things, and I'm like, whoa, like that's the sound, like that's it right there. And he was adding like compressors just by the insert button, and I was like, wow, like so that's what it is, you know, like that's, you know, those big boards, SSL, like panning on there, like that's what it is. And I then started to look into, you know, like how can I do that at home without buying a $100,000 SSL. And very quickly, I started to hear all the debates about analog summing and digital summing, and I was like, is there really a difference? And there actually is a video on YouTube that proves, you know, scientifically that analog summing by itself actually does not make any difference. Like they even got it like they even did a null test where it completely nulls. But it's mainly the other components in the summing box and the workflow and the decisions that you make because of that workflow that make the difference.
There you go. I was going to use the term it's musical.
It
It's
is
like
music,
it's an instrument.
absolutely,
It becomes an
absolutely.
instrument.
You're working with real transformers or tubes or transistors, capacitors, I believe. Yeah, and
Mhm.
you know, that's really what adds that sound. And also, in my opinion, the limitation, right? I only have 16 channels. I wish I had like, you know, 64 or 124, whatever, right? But I only have 16. So, you know, I have to kind of choose where do I use what, how do I use it? And I think the limitation breeds creativity. I mean, like how often does it happen that we open up our plugin list and it's like 500 plugins and you're like, well, I don't even know which EQ to use at this point. But if you had like five, you know, it becomes a bit easier because you don't have all these options, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the way it was in the beginning. You know, you had so many compressors in the rack. That's all you had. So if you're going to put
Exactly.
something into that, you choose your, you know, your way down the line. Or even, you know, think going back like the Beatle thing with 4 track. You know, talk
Yeah.
about planning. You know,
It's you have to really think about priorities, like what's important, you know, and what comes first, what comes second. You know, you have to really think about that stuff. And even on the SSLs, like before, like I was explaining to a friend of mine like how back in the days they had to do, you know, tape that maybe like a 24 track tape going to the console, going to the master tape, no computer involved. And it was really blowing your mind, like, wow, like that's really how they had to do it back then. And you know, it's we're actually so blessed, like having the freedom to go between analog and digital, or completely digital if we want. I mean, like some of the top engineers in the world right now are completely digital, and there's nothing wrong with it. You know, it's just that they get the stuff recorded through Neves and APIs and all that stuff already, so it already has that
correct.
flavor, if you will.
Yep, yep. And there's just so many great reverbs and things that are in that in the digital world these days. Some of the things
Yeah.
that I've been hearing. Lately we got a mix in an immersive mix, and I was just blown away at the lushness of the reverbs. Just and
Yeah.
that's a question for you. How much do you get much how am I going to say this from your artist or people that you work with talking about, oh, maybe we should consider this one for an immersive mix, or has that been something that's been coming up?
Uh, Interestingly, I've heard some artists mentioning that they want an immersive mix, and very often I would ask them why, and they're not really sure as to, they feel like they kind of have to do that.
Mm,
You know, because like listening to an immersive mix on AirPods, you know what I mean? It becomes very, you know, like as an engineer, like I can hear exactly what's happening. It's pretty much like a reverb thrown over the sound that mimics the effect of it being in a room, right? Actually being in an immersive room and listening to the immersive mix in an immersive room, I think is a whole different experience by itself. And I still believe that stereo is going to stay kind of like the standard baseline of things, only because you know, in order to really hear, to appreciate the difference between stereo versus like an immersive mix, you need to really be in an immersive room. And it's been only like maybe a select few songs that I've heard on AirPods that I'm like, yeah, I prefer the immersive mix over the stereo one. But it's a really cool, like I mean I would love to have an immersive room, you know. Um, and that's definitely something that's next for me.
yeah. Well, that goes back to the thing, you know, like the time that you put in, like, you know, when you talk about your analog summing and whether you can use digital or analog for that, of course, but it's what you're doing to that stereo mix that makes it sound so good. And if you're going to go to the immersive thing, you don't want to go away from that, you know? So
Right.
there's, and certainly there's a lot of stuff that's just getting tossed out there to say, oh, just so that it could be in that playlist, you know?
Right, you know, or to get that badge, you know, that says Dolby Atmos. But I believe that, like, look, like, especially when it first came out, it was cool. But the problem was that majority of the immersive mixes were simply songs that were placed in movies, and because of that, they had to be mixed in 7.4.1 and
Yeah,
5.1, all those, right, all those formats.
right.
But it's really like I'm extremely excited to hear about, you know, to hear the songs that are created for the purpose of immersive mixing, because then you make different decisions then, right? Like you can easily, you know, like pan the background vocals to the back, or, you know, you can do all kinds of stuff, right? But when you really take advantage of that, that's when things really get exciting.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, I got another question for you that came up.
Yeah.
Um, do you use loops or do you mostly make your own?
I definitely use a lot of loops. And I like it's a mix of both, right? Like I like loops because they get my creativity going. Like I get a loop and I'm like, wow, I know exactly where I want to take this. You know, it's if I do my own thing, if I do make my own loop, if you will, I'm usually kind of in a zone where I want to just create something from scratch.
Cool. So
Yeah.
that was Eric that asked that question. Good job, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.
uh, hold on. There's, you know, there, it wasn't scrolling. So I was, now I'm just realizing there's a
Oh,
whole bunch
and then you guys.
yeah, like, look at this there.
They should have a feature where you can have it on like a separate screen so you can just see all the questions.
Well, that's just it. See, Eric has this, he's supposed to be putting them over here so I don't have to scroll.
Right.
I call him producer Eric, but I'd have to get a new one. So how long you been in the Genelec family? Those are 8040Bs?
Yes. I've had these guys for I would say 5 years now. Yeah.
You get a lot of compliments too, man. I gotta say, that's always a good thing.
No, I appreciate all of it, man. It's love. Thank you.
Yeah. Somebody just asked any tips for us.
Well,
Tips for pitching to artists it was
ooh, I mean, tips for pitching to artists. It's such a you know, it's such a social thing as it is a musical thing, right? Like, you know, you can play the best piece of music to an artist, and you know, just the vibes in the room, or you know, there's so many factors involved. So I would say, you know, in person still wins. You know, like we yes, we do have internet, and it's amazing that we can connect with people all over the world. Like it's awesome, right? But I've always just loved the vibe in the room, and how that goes. And if you're in the room with the artist, you know, you can get to ask questions and you get like direct feedback, and you know, and at the same time they can actually see how you respond to your own music, because if you don't respond well to your music, why should they respond well to your music, right? So there's a lot involved there, and you have to in a way also you know, kind of be a salesman, where you have to, you know, like, hey, listen to this one, or listen, you have to read the room. You know, it's a very social thing as it is a music thing. But my main tip would be obviously have some dope music. You know, you need to have good music to play for the artist, right? If it's just not good music, you can do everything you want, but it's just not going to work.
Yeah, and you said something else that I thought absolutely, you got to read the room, man. I mean,
you have to you have to read the room. You know, if you've played 5 beats and people are starting to scratch their neck, and it's like, yeah, it's cool. People look at their phones. They're probably not interested, right? Like if, you know, like for me, that's usually like, you know, sign number one, right? Like if people are not interested, if you can usually tell, and then, you know, just move on to the next. It's okay, right? Because you know, you may be super like, oh, this is the one, you know, but more often than not have I experienced that I send out, you know, a beat pack to somewhere, I play some beats, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna take this one. And he takes the one that I didn't even really want to play them. I'll play a beat, and they're like, that's the one. I'm like, oh, really? Okay, cool. And seriously, that happens almost all the time. And I'm sure a lot of producers uh can empathize with that, like where they send out, a whole folder of music, and the one that they ended up picking was the one they least expected them to pick, which makes me like, okay, well, I guess I gotta just put in whatever and just let the universe do the rest.
Yeah. Um, so there was some more going back to the hardware questions.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, what's the first channel strip you bought after your audio interface? And it's probably not in the rack anymore, is it?
Good question. No, it's not. So I actually like the first one that, like, I have to, shout out my brother, my dear friend Mustafa El Amin. Great artist, person, A&R, everything. Like, I have nothing but good things to say about this guy. And he actually introduced me to my first piece of analog. He had a Avalon 737 VT channel strip. Famous, it's used by, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Kanye West, you name it, right? Like everyone's used it. Amazing channel strip. And he just had it sitting in a room. And he was like, well, I don't know how to use it, right? So just you use it and I get free studio time. And I was like, cool, that's a good deal. So I took it, and immediately I understood why it's so expensive and why it's so good, and why people use it. But I didn't buy that, right? So there was a deal made there, but I didn't buy it. The first one that I actually ended up buying was the one behind me, which is the Shelfer channel, and which is the channel by Rupert Neve. And man, that day a lot of things changed, because like I've heard it, like the first time I heard it, I was like, wow, like this is it. And for the people that don't know, man, it's the Bugatti of channels.
And more of a scalpel than it is, right?
100%. It's so precise, but so buttery and open, but thick. It's everything you kind of want. Like, if you want that super bright type of sound, you can get that. If you want that really like lo-fi, kind of dark, analog, warmy kind of sound, you can get that too. It's so versatile. But like you said, it definitely is a scalpel. It's so precise. 100%.
Yeah. The other one you mentioned, I'm sorry, was the first one that you didn't buy. I'm sorry?
The Avalon.
The Avalon, right. That had an optical compressor, right? That was
so that's an optical compressor. It's got 4 tubes in it, and it's got a beautiful EQ in it as well.
Yeah.
Even has an airband, like 32K, which is higher than our hearing,
Yeah.
But it does add, like the shelf adds some sort of air. Like Neve used to do this in their old consoles as well, where you can boost higher frequencies than our hearing range, which makes no sense, right? But it does add something in you. We feel it more than we hear it.
Yeah. Okay, so getting back now, somebody said, any tips for self-doubt comparing yourself to a better producer?
That's it's honestly a really good question.
Yeah, I like that.
I have this thing in my head that I always remind myself of when I do it, because I do it too. Like, no one is exempt from that. Like, we always compare, and especially now with social media, we're only comparing ourselves even more all the time. And it's not natural, it's not healthy, in my opinion, because everyone is on their own journey, right? Like, everyone has their own.
Absolutely.
Everyone's just doing their own thing, and everyone gets their own success at their own time. And the thing I always keep reminding myself of is that the guy that wrote Thriller for Michael Jackson was 47 years old. And that, to me, shows that it doesn't matter how old you are, where you are. Yeah, sure, there's a 22-year-old already made $1 million. Cool. And then there's a 40-year-old guy that just made his first $100,000. But, if something is meant for you, I genuinely believe that it will be yours. So you just got to stay focused on what you do, because the more grass is greener on the other side, right? The more that you look at someone else's journey and someone else's success, the less attention and focus that you're giving your own. So that would be my advice on that.
There you go. I like that, because nobody can do you better than you.
You said it. That's it. 100%.
There you go. Going back to the drum machine, samplers or VST?
Ooh, you know what? I have to be honest. I am definitely 100% in the VST world when it comes to, drum programming and all that kind of stuff. It's just fast and super versatile and really powerful. See, like there's things in the digital realm that analog simply can't do, and vice versa, right? Like there's things that analog things can do that digital can get maybe close to, but not, it can't do it. Like, you know, hands, for example, like, you know, people know about Golfers or Soothe or, you know, certain multi-band compressors or processors. You can't do that in the analog world, right? Like no, you can't do that, right? It's something that only digital can do. So for me, it would definitely be a digital thing. But MPCs, man, every single time I hear them, they're like, it's like, wow, like, yeah, that's an MPC. You know, you can hear it. But other than the MPC, I would say I'm 100% in the box.
I mean, the MPC is the staple, right? I mean, when it comes to the analog, yeah.
I remember the first time me using one, it made sense to me immediately. I was just like, you know, doing a little groove, and it was sounding cool. But then as soon as I clicked on the loop thing, and it started to loop it by itself, it has this. And the guy that owned it, he was telling me too, it has this quantization algorithm that just puts such a nice swing to everything. And I'm still trying to figure out what that is, because like I want to know how to get that in my computer, because it really has a sound. Like it absolutely has a sound.
There's got to be an app for that.
I would hope so. And and if you guys know which one it is, let me know, because
put it in the comments here.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Someone asked also, do you live stream beat making sessions on Twitch?
No, but that is in the works. Like me and management, we're heavy on that right now. Getting on the YouTube, Twitch, Instagram lives, all that good stuff. So absolutely.
Yeah, Instagram is still kind of king, isn't it?
Like yes and no, because you know, Instagram is limited in terms of what you are able to, like, even like sharing your screen and stuff. Like it becomes very complicated very quickly. I believe that Twitch works through it's very confusing, honestly, but it works through a program that Twitch uses to stream through. So you can do all kinds of things where you share your screen and multiple screens and switching between screens. Where with Instagram, that becomes very complicated.
Yeah, and like trying to read questions on Instagram while it's flying by.
Yeah, you have to, like, there's only like 2 that show up, so you have to kind of like scroll and stuff. Yeah,
right.
Twitch is like, it's on the side, and you know, it's a bit in my opinion, a bit more organized than Instagram Live. But Instagram Live is it's the convenience thing, right? Like just the fact that we're able to just do this, and I just click join, and here we are. That's amazing in itself.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. How do you? Oh, it just moved. Eric, you're supposed to put that to my computer over here. How do you soon start a mix? The elements to your beats. How do you start mixing the elements to your beats? Or do you save mixing for a later stage?
Good question. I actually do both. And it depends kind of, I guess, what mood I'm in. But I like to, you know, when I'm making beats, I don't want to focus too much on the mixing aspect, you know, which is hard because like my mind is already crazy. Like, oh, there's too much 200 hertz on this sample. Like I'm already thinking of everything, right? But I have to remind myself, okay, no, this is the creation process. Right now I'm creating. I'm just adding things together. And if it sounds good enough, then that's good. And then later on in the process, like, okay, like I'll usually actually export the stems to a different DAW, just because FL Studio is not the greatest with CPU consumption yet, unfortunately. Which honestly, I wish they did something about that very soon. But you know, I export the stems, and then I would mix it in my preferred DAW, which is Studio One, and I will actually go in and give it the exact same treatment I would for any other client's mix, where I do the summing and the whole 9 yards. And a lot of people would ask me, you know, is that necessary? Absolutely not. It's 100% not necessary. It's just like, I have the gear. Like, why not use it, right?
Right.
And but yeah. So sometimes though, I find a certain groove where I'm just working and mixing at the same time, and then it just ends up working out. And you know, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So I just don't touch it. And then I'm like, okay,
yeah, less is more, like you said earlier.
100%.
Somebody asked also, is there any artist that you haven't worked with that you would love to have that chance.
I mean, Kendrick, Kanye West, man, like the list goes on. Like Drake, Party Next Door, Kalani, her. Like there's so many artists I would love to work with, and not simply because they're big and famous, but because like I actually connect with their music, and I believe that I would actually have something to offer them too, right? In terms of sonic, sonics.
That's a good answer to that one.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many talented artists out here, right? But the artists that I just named, like those are really, especially Kendrick. Like Kendrick would have me, really get serious and like, okay, I got to make sure that I do this right, and because like certain like, and not to say that other clients don't deserve that same treatment. It's just that like there's a certain excellence, expected. Like I would expect a certain excellence, if I'm at that. Like, I mean, this guy is like, I don't know how many Grammys in Obama's favorite playlist, like all kinds of stuff, right? So it's like, that's really, I would say that's excellence. It's the same thing with Kanye and all these guys, man. Like it's really music at a level of excellence. So it would also push me to really deliver something.
That's just great because, like, there are artists where it's like it was their gift. It's been there all along and they tapped it and there they are. And other people that have to work towards that, doesn't mean that you can't be on the same level, but it's just like where it came from in the beginning and how you rose to your craft.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I'm not sure if you've seen the Kanye documentary, but, so inspiring seeing just like how humble beginnings, like the same thing everyone else is doing, right? Just like making music and linking up with the homies and just, having fun and just, knowing your own value and look where he is today, just because he was very, steady and focused and consistent, consistent execution, that's what led all these guys to be where they are.
Yeah. And the drive that just doesn't end, right?
Absolutely. I mean, man, you have to be your own coach. Seriously, man. It's it can get very hard. I mean, I've had a lot of dark days in this music, and I'm sure anyone in the music industry can agree. It's like sometimes you feel so lonely and so by yourself, and you need to really find that drive from within to keep going, because sometimes it can be very discouraging if you feel like you put so much effort into something and you're not getting what you feel you deserve, but you have to just realize like, no, this is part of the path. This is part of what I signed up for. Keep going, and you have to keep going.
And yeah, and it's changing. It's evolving always.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like when you were with your own project that you said was really personal and you put a lot of it into it. I mean, that's what you want, not the grind of like, oh, I'm churning them out my own thing every,
Yeah, absolutely.
You harness together all that stuff that's important to you and you get it out there.
100%. I mean, like, and it's funny, like I always say that I believe that like the best music is pain. It's when the emotions come out and you use music as your like I'm looking for a specific word, but you're using music as your outlet. Thank you. Outlets. You're using music as your outlet to get all those emotions out.
Yeah. And you learn from it on your own as well,
Yeah,
when you
absolutely.
look back. Dude, you've been like so like inspirational to talk to. We end this thing. I feel inspired now.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that. Thank you.
I mean, when you said that 47-year-old guy wrote Thriller,
it's real.
There's still hope.
It's a fact. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure there's so many more examples, but it's so true. Yeah.
Someone asked, do you have more songs on the way with Safe?
Yes, I do. I mean, like I've, a lot of stuff has been sent out. I'm sure that he's recorded to a lot of stuff as well, and already one song came out. So yes, we definitely have some cool stuff in the pipeline.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Well, we've come to the sort of the wrap up part of this. I want to thank you for hanging out with us, and
thank you for having me.
Yeah, sharing some insights, sharing your cave, of course. Simple, to the point, and it just goes to show you, you know, with dedication, passion, like the gear that you need is that's going to get you to the final product. That's it.
100%, 100%. And I also want to thank you guys for creating such amazing products, because, you know, just the amount of music that I've created, you know, using it's really something special, right? Like just us here talking about it right now, and it's really special to me, and it's really the glass, like the mirror from the mind to the music, and what comes out to the speakers is so important. So thank you guys for making such amazing products.
Our pleasure. We love hearing that. It never gets old. I can tell you that. We love talking to people, helping them with their situations, helping them to figure out what they're listening for, what they should be listening for, if there's any,
Right.
you know, things that aren't translating or whatever. So, yeah. And by the way, if you've never met Eric,
So,
How you doing, Eric?
yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Likewise.
yeah. Well, thanks again, my friend. And
Oh, thank you so much. You've been awesome.
yeah, I appreciate it. You have a great one. And we're going to go back and put your album on.
Sounds good. Thank you. Take care.
Got it, man. Take care.